Welcome to the Nitronic Rush Hardcore level starter tutorial. Before we start, there are a few things you should know. The reason we call this a starter tutorial is because there really aren't beginner techniques for the hardcore levels. If you want to run hardcore, you should thoroughly familiarize yourself with the game's mechanics, learn story mode, and watch all the technique tutorials before you get started. As well, hardcore levels have no wing use, so there's no easy way to save yourself if you mess up. Learning how to control yourself in the air without wings is an absolute must for this category. Alright, let's get started. City entrance starts with two simple 180s. Be sure to boost the whole way through. From this ramp, you want to jump very close to the end and immediately do a roll. This lines you up well to land on the upper track, but use your front and back thrusters to adjust. Don't jump off of this next ramp, instead angle down a little bit if you can and roll 3 times, then turn left and jump to this building. Turn left again and use your side thrusters to rotate sideways, then use front and back thrusters to ensure that you're pointed towards the checkpoint. Once you are, level yourself out. You can use front thrusters when you land to ensure that you don't spin out when you land. After the checkpoint, you have 2 more simple 180s. At this split path, take the right path, and for this 180, be sure to rotate to the right. For all sideways 180s like this, you should rotate right if you're jumping off of a left wall, and left if you're jumping off of a right wall. Try to remember which way is down so you can figure it out for any jump. Angle down off of this drop, and when you hit this checkpoint, drive off a bit to the right and just float through the air to the end. You can rotate on your side and use front and back thrusters to correct your angle, but be sure to feather the boost if you need to. Core approach starts out with a simple vertical turn. Get close to the ground before you jump off the wall, but not too close, and be sure to be pointed slightly at the wall as you jump back on. To avoid these saws, just line up a bit left to the center of the track. Drive off of this ramp, angle down if you can, roll once and adjust to land. This leads into 2 more simple 180s like the ones in City entrance. For this ramp, jump off close to the end and do a barrel roll immediately, then adjust to land. Be careful as you drive through the lasers, keeping in mind that cutting turns close is generally the fastest way to go through. For this ramp, drive off, roll once, and then use your front thrusters to land properly. These spikes are partly manipulated by where you're going, so drive a bit to the right, and when you see the distant spikes landing, start slowly turning back left to enter the tunnel. At this checkpoint, make sure you're on the right side to avoid the first barrier, then weave through the barriers and the lasers. Stay around the middle as you do the 180, and when the track levels out, drive off to the right and jump off at the edge of the track. Once you land on this building, line up just left of the nearby tower and drive off the side. Do a roll and use your thrusters to angle around the sideways track so that you land facing the correct direction, then jump onto the side track as soon as possible. Be careful with this last jump, because the track is farther away than it seems. The last set of spikes aren't manipulated by your movements, but the first set is generally thinner towards the sides. You need to be able to react to where the spikes land, and don't forget to do a roll so that you have enough boost to make it through. Two of the skips in gold are in the top 3 hardest skips of this tutorial, so I'll be covering them separately after covering the basic route. These 180s are very standard, just jump off towards the end of the track. This jump is tricky. Jump at the very end of the ramp and make sure that you're going to make it before rolling. You can use the front thrusters after this turn to make sure you don't get thrown off. For this 180, roll right and roll left for the second 180. These broken tracks, drive off of the left side of the first, then roll off of the second. You'll need to be able to react to the cycles on this roller. Then drive off of the right side of the third track and angle down off of the middle of the fourth. These are standard vertical 180s, just don't let go of boost. This jump is easy to make because you don't need a roll, so you can focus on your angle. After this checkpoint, jump off to the side of the track and angle a little bit downwards, then roll sideways and use your front and back thrusters to point yourself back towards the track. Your goal is to land on either this red track or the first broken yellow track. Then jump and roll off of the second broken track, jump and angle down off of the third, jump and roll off the fourth, roll off of the fifth, and angle a bit backwards off of the last one. Be sure to boost the whole way. Now we'll cover the skips. For the first skip, you want to drive off of the side of the track a bit before reaching the end, then use front thrusters to point yourself towards the yellow track. Adjust your angle with the side thrusters until you're sideways, then use front and back thrusters to make sure you're pointed at the track, and then roll at least once to make sure that you get enough points in the trick. It's a lot of motions to think about, and it's probably the hardest skip in this tutorial, but it saves a bit over 6 seconds if you do it well. You also have to be extra careful because you didn't hit the checkpoint before this jump. The other difficult skip cuts over these two 180s. Drive off the side immediately, let go of boost momentarily if you need to, then use front thrusters to angle yourself far down, and as the camera adjusts, correct your angle and make sure you have a roll to give yourself enough points to make the next jump. To start on black, get up on the wall. Jump into a 180 to the right off of this wall, and then keep in mind that gravity will push against you as you take this turn. 2 simple 180s will bring you back to normal orientation. These 2 turns are weird. Gravity works with you for the first one, but it also works against you for the second one. It's difficult to make the second turn without hitting the wall, so don't worry about that immediately. For this wall ride, you can get up on either side of the wall, whichever is more comfortable for you. Be sure to use your front thrusters after you're sure you're past the start of the tunnel, so you can angle yourself to get on the wall earlier. For these 2 turns, gravity works against you for the first one and with you for the second, so it's easier to avoid the walls. Align yourself around the center of the track, jump and do a 180 to the right, and then turn right a bit and drive off the edge at an angle. Rotate right 90 degrees to level out, tap the front thruster to angle down a bit, and then roll once to extend your trick. You can tap front thruster when you land to make sure you don't spin out. Once you're up on the wall, do a 180 to the right and take this turn sharp because gravity works against you. For the very end, all you have to do is hold boost and go straight up. Death Machine has one of the 3 hardest skips in the tutorial, so we'll be covering the route without it first. Angle down a little off this ramp to get back on the track a bit earlier, and for this turn on the wall, gravity works against you, so take it sharp. After this checkpoint, get up on the wall and do a 180 left, then take another turn against gravity and 2 180s in either direction to reach the next checkpoint. After this 180, be prepared for this turn because again gravity is working against you. Do a 180 to the right here and jump off this wall, and then tap the front thruster after going off this ramp so you can land earlier. For the first set of 180s, roll left for the first and right for the second. For the second set, roll right for the first and left for the second. Roll near the end of these torches and align yourself at the right edge of the track, and as soon as you can't see the building on the left anymore, take a sharp turn left, being sure to stop turning before going off the edge. You can jump here, but it's not necessary. Roll to extend your trick and then adjust your angle to land on the right side of the building with the slanted roof. Then you want to jump to these next 2 buildings, and once you land in the second, turn right slightly so you can align yourself with the goal. The difficult skip in Death Machine comes after the first checkpoint. Instead of continuing along the track normally here, you want to take a sharp right and use your front thrusters to angle yourself to be pointing towards this building. Then you want to roll to extend your trick and land on the building, then jump and angle back slightly so you can make this jump back to the track. Gladiator is all about cycles and execution. At the start, wait for just over half a second before boosting so you don't get hit at the start. Let go of boost occasionally over this jump and use your thrusters to make sure you land properly. Now everyone uses different references for this section cycles, and you can go either left or right to get through this wall of blocks. A good reference to start with is to let go of boost, line up in a hole in the wall, and start boosting again just after the 8-second mark on the timer. For all these tunnel turns, go a little bit left before turning to maintain as much speed as possible. Here, where you see the track tilt down slightly, jump onto either wall. If you look carefully, you'll see small lines on the wall. You need to tap front thrusters as you go over these to keep yourself from falling off the wall. Jump back onto the track as soon as possible to line up for this next tunnel. For this section, get up on the wall and stay below the lines because they'll also throw you off the wall. This is the server room. Taking it with full boost is pretty stressful, so there's no reason not to let go of boost for a little bit if you're not going for a super fast time. For this jump, either side is fine depending on where you came out of the server room. Just line up as straight as possible going into it and then angle down to get back onto the track faster. For these blocks, you just need to be able to react to their cycles. And this next jump behaves very inconsistently. Your best bet is to go off it as straight as possible and then just watch where it sends you and adjust to make sure you make the jump. For this 180, jump about halfway up the wall and then jump off the ceiling just after the first light fixture. The gold loop is just standard boosting. After this checkpoint, get up on the wall and drive between these two lines. Be sure to not turn too fast or you might lose friction. Then just jump off the wall when you get into the tunnel. The track ends with 3 180s. The first goes up, so jump about halfway off the wall. The second goes down, so jump as soon as you're past the arrows, and the third is the same as the first. Once you're on the ceiling, jump off and drive straight off of the ramp, then tap front thrusters once you're over the wall. Observatory is another level that's heavily based on execution. For this tunnel, unlike Gladiator, you want to stay in the center of the tunnel for the turn. After this halt, be sure to tap front and back thrusters to get back on the track quickly. After the checkpoint, drop down on either side and tilt slightly towards the wall to land smoothly, then drive along the wall for extra control and speed. When you reach the bottom, get back on the ground and get into the tunnel. Take the right wall after this checkpoint and drive down the middle, then jump off into the glass tunnel. Tap front and back thrusters to drop down onto the track, then hold front thruster as you drive up to ensure that you don't lose traction, and be careful to avoid making sharp turns. For this tunnel, drive left a bit before you start making the turn and use thrusters to make the turn sharper. Make sure you're aimed a little bit left going through the center of this opening and roll once, then use front thrusters to attach to the ground and roll. You can jump through the opening if you have trouble getting through in one piece. Be sure to get back on the ground before you overheat. Instead of doing these 180s normally, jump between the walls to make sure you have enough boost to make the checkpoint. After this checkpoint, get up on the left wall and jump down and into the tunnel. This tunnel is a little bit difficult to control after getting off the wall, so don't worry too much about that. Jump over this red barricade and use front and back thrusters to get back onto the track, then aim down off of this ramp. Stay around the center of the track here, and depending on how quickly you've gone, these rotating arms will be in a different position, so you have to be able to react to where they are. Hop this ledge and proceed into the glass tunnel. Hop this ledge and stay on either the left or right slanted ledges. Hop this ledge and avoid the lasers. Keep boosting the whole way, no tricks needed. For this tunnel, stay in the center for the turns. For the last room, you can either line up right next to the saw on the inside or get up on the slanted ledge, and you'll be safe until the hop at the end. Nitro Tunnel is mostly just the same techniques repeated, but we'll cover it all. The less you adjust to get around these barriers, the faster your time will be overall. For all of the bunny hops, just tap front and back thrusters once you're over the barriers to get back onto the track faster. The slaloms between tall barriers get progressively difficult, and there's not much I can tell you that'll make you better at them other than practice turning as little as possible. For this first ramp, use front thruster immediately to get back onto the track before the hop. And for the second, wait a moment before using your front thruster, then jump late to get over both barriers in one jump. Keep right going off of this ramp to set up for the short slalom, and do the same off of the next ramp. For this ramp, wait for at least a second before you start angling down, because it's a pretty big jump to make. These exploding mines randomly launch debris, and usually they're not a problem, but if you see a piece of it in your path, try to get it out of the way. This is the first concerning slalom. The last 4 barriers are closer together and you have to be able to make quick adjustments to get past. Be careful to not jump into this raised barrier. Jump onto this ramp and let yourself fly for a second before you adjust downward. These dropper zones aren't very concerning because their obstacles are few and far between. Don't take this raised ramp because it's much faster to just jump the gap, but be sure to avoid the centered barrier. Drive off these ramps and lightly use front thruster to aim back onto the track. Before you even reach this checkpoint, get onto the right side of the track to prepare for the ramp after these 2 barriers. Wait about a second and a half before you angle downwards. If you angle down too early, you can use air control to save yourself. Jump immediately after this last raised barrier to get onto the last ramp, and wait for almost 2 seconds before you angle down. For all these big jumps, you can hit the front thruster when you land to avoid skidding. These saws move fairly slowly, so it's pretty easy to telegraph where they'll be. For these bunny hops, jumping earlier is generally better because depth perception can trick you and make you jump too late. This last slalom can be completely avoided with a technique we call edge riding. Hold down front and right thrusters as you inch over the edge of the platform, then tap left periodically as you get close to the bottom. Continue this through to the checkpoint and then inch slowly back over the corner, then just boost to the finish. Chances are that if you're on gamepad, especially advanced controls, you'll find the edge ride difficult if not impossible. In that case, you'll have to do the slalom normally. Most players will feather the boost to make sure that they can control themselves through the slalom. It is possible to make it through without letting go of boost, but most players, even at high levels of play, find this incredibly difficult, if not impossible. Thanks for watching this tutorial. I hope you learned something about the routing and technique for the hardcore levels and enjoyed the video. We'll be working on an advanced tutorial for the hardcore levels, which will showcase many more risky strategies of, say, varying amounts of time. These are some of the coolest looking routes in the game in my opinion, so I highly encourage you to check them out by watching the tutorial or the current world record run if the tutorial isn't out yet. For now, you can click on this annotation to return to the hub video. Thanks again for watching.